Dear Melissa, Scrum, as well as several scaling methodologies, encourage the use of release planning. This approach can help improve the predictability of features being released to customers, to help address feature fatigue, and to help manage stakeholder expectations. However, a common trap is that product managers and product leaders become more schedule-driven versus outcome-driven. What advice would you give to product professionals and their leaders who believe they need release planning to improve their predictability with customers and stakeholders without them falling into the schedule-driven build trap? All right, I have worked in a lot of companies where this has been the problem. Release planning tends to be focused on what we're delivering to customers, but the problem here is it ignores discovery. When I've worked with companies that do SAFe, they love the idea of big room planning because it gets everybody in the room to talk about what we're going to actually do. Many times, this is the first time that different teams and different areas around the business and the portfolio actually have come together to discuss as a portfolio, not just one team, where we're going to build and how we're going to work on initiatives together. So that part of it is great. A big piece of feedback I hear from those teams, though, is that they try to shove everything they want to do into that big room planning. And then when they miss the release, they get penalized, or they might discover something that changes everything, but people look at it as set in stone. So it's okay, we discovered something we're going to release in 3 months, but we have no room to go back and fiddle with it because it's committed. I've also seen this be an issue in back-to-back Scrum. A couple companies that I've worked with have done it where everybody in the company needs to sprint on the same cadence. It's like sprint 1, sprint 2, sprint 3. And there is no time for discovery in those sprints. It's just if you miss a sprint or you don't plan your sprint, that's it. And again, we do some kind of quarterly planning. They commit to all their sprints. That's a lot, right? That's a lot to do on a company level. And that's a lot to do on a team level, honestly, for a long time. What's happening here is companies are not baking in any time for strategy. So they just expect everybody to keep sprinting forever. Feed the beast, but don't give the beast any time to go figure out what it should be eating. You need time to craft the meal. You need time to actually do the discovery and learn things. And then you need the ability to pivot. So what I find is that we need a balance here, because on the flip side too, you do want to do release planning. Release planning is good because it helps you think about financial planning for the company. What are we releasing and how is that going to help our customers? Customer expectations. You don't want to be releasing things in, let's say, healthcare to doctors when they're in the middle of a surgery with patients. It's been done before. You want them to be able to be trained on things and get up to speed with it before you take critical stuff and switch it up. So in B2B, we can't be like, ta-da, here's a bunch of stuff that I just changed on you every single day. So we need a balance here. So we need a balance for the ability to do discovery, the ability to change things that are not working, right? Pivot if we find out that the products we're committing to are not the right things to build. And we do need to be able to plan somewhat for messaging, sales, and customer expectations. So what I see work is that in those release planning sessions, we're only planning for what's already validated. That means that we might not be trying to optimize for filling in absolutely everything in every moment of our time during that quarter. It's more about how do we just commit to the things that we know we're going to be able to do that will produce value. So you want to scope the release about the problems you're solving and the value that goes into it to actually make it solved, right? Something that's going to go out to customers where they go, wow, and they feel value for it, and they come back to you and they give you money, and you can adjust and watch your metrics grow, right? Something that will actually increase retention, something that will actually increase usage, right? That's what release scoping is about, making sure that there's enough value in that release. But you don't want to scope it based on getting every little feature in there, and you don't want to do your release planning to basically mock up every little second of a team's time over the quarter. So instead, I like to think about it as pulling. So you're going out, you're doing discovery, you're validating things, you're breaking them down into releasable chunks. Once something is validated and scoped, you pull it into the release. You say, okay, it's ready for this release. Let's get it lined up for Q2, right? Let's pull it in instead of coming up with a bunch of ideas and then pushing it into the release. That's where people get tripped up. It's not that release planning is bad. It's that I don't think a lot of companies out there are accounting for the work that it takes to develop what goes into that release is not the only work the team is doing. They still need to do discovery. They still need to do experimentation. They got other things going on. It's not about quantity of things going into the release. It's about the quality, about what they're actually going to do during that release. And every single thing that gets release planned should have an outcome metric on it, leading indicators that show that we're going towards a valuable metric. I'd make that a requirement for actually making a release plan. If you don't have set metrics and success metrics that we can measure and a way to implement them on that scoped out product that you're going to release or a feature set, it doesn't make it. It does not make the release plan. That should be a requirement there. We need to also remember that V2 is not impossible. We want to get enough out to change the metrics we care about and to provide some value. We want to do that quickly so our customers can benefit, but it's not about just shoving absolutely everything we can do into a release. And leaders need to remember that it's not about the quantity, it's about the quality. So what are those releases going to do? I'd rather have a bigger release focused on one major thing that's going to move metrics gigantically than have 15 things that are never going to move the needle. That's a perception that we need to change when it comes to release planning. So I hope that helps. And if you are out there struggling with this, remember, you need to bake in time for discovery. It's not all about sprinting as fast as you possibly can.